Hello, today is Wednesday, September 27th, 2023, and welcome to episode 254 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm Jamil Jaffer, NSI's founder and executive director. I'm joined here today by Jessica Jones, NSI's deputy executive director, and two of NSI's senior fellows, Les Munson and Morgan Venia. So today we're going to be talking about some goings on in the South China Sea. The Chinese have recently prevented Philippine fishermen from accessing a part of the Scarborough Shoal. This is a rich fishing area off the coast of the Philippines within their 220-mile exclusive economic zone. The Chinese, since the 1940s, have claimed not only this shoal, but many other islands in the South China Sea, including the Spratlys and the like. This has caused a significant amount of friction between them and other Indo-Pacific nations, including the United States and our allies like the Philippines, the Japanese, the Malaysians, and the like. So this is a huge issue going on. Just as of yesterday, the Philippine government sent in a diver who cut the line, the floating buoys that the Chinese had used to exclude Philippine fishermen. So the battle has been joined. But this is a longer issue. This is a bigger issue. There have been fights over the Spratlys. The Chinese have been building militarized islands. About 7 islands have now built with significant radar and military facilities. So this is an issue that's going to continue to be a problem. The question for us today is, what, if anything, should the U.S. do about it? If the Philippine government, which is a longtime ally and partner of the United States, we are now building, we're reestablishing our military bases there as part of our Indo-Pacific strategy. Should we defend the Philippine government and its people in their rightful claim to accessing these shoals and these fishing areas? Should we be running more freedom of navigation operations? Will this provoke a potential fight between an increasingly expansive and aggressive Chinese Navy and merchant marine fleet? So, Jessica Jones, what do you think?
Easy to solve problem, right? Well, I think, you've touched on some of the things the US has been doing lately. You have a Philippine president that came in last year who's taking a tougher stance on China, and who now not just saying it with rhetoric is an action, right? Like you point out the recent story of cutting the rope. He allowed access to the US to 4 more bases this year. They held the biggest joint exercise ever. The US has announced over 100 million in military aid. They're going to upgrade the bases. And as you point out, Secretary Austin recommitted our commitment to the Philippines to defending them. And so you really have to wonder, in the face of both all of the U.S. action this year and maybe tougher Philippine president, whether that makes China actually take pause, right? They've got their own domestic issues going on that we've covered in the show, and whether they might actually kind of toe the line and stay where they are now and shift to focus on some of their domestic problems.
But it doesn't look like they are, right? I mean, it does appear that they're sort of engaging these activities once again. These sort of, in this case, it's just fishing villages, or sorry, fishing zones. I mean, it seems like a problem. And Morgan, you served at the U.S. UN. I mean, can the UN do anything here? Is there a role for them to play? I know the UN always says when the U.S. says something about a maritime dispute, well, you didn't sign the law. You haven't ratified the law of the sea.
Now,
so, I mean,
for once,
is the law of the sea
right?
relevant here? I mean, what is the UN doing, and can they be doing anything in this
space?
space?
Really, sort of what the United States is going to be doing about this. We have a mutual defense pact.
Yeah.
With the Philippines, and this is just the latest act of Chinese aggression towards a treaty ally. As you and Jess noted, we've been expanding our footprint there, but I think we also need to be looking more regionally. President Biden was just in Vietnam. It looks like they're working out a sale for F-16s. So I think what we're really seeing right now is this administration trying to shore up U.S. presence in the region, not just in the Philippines, because that clearly is, Philippines is a top priority for us. But I think we're also looking at, other partners and allies and how we can best defend them as a region. You mentioned that the United States is conducting a number of defense operations within the region. Clearly, that should continue. I think we can actually step that up in many ways, but really ensuring that our partners have the ability to defend themselves, I think really is the first step. Yeah.
So, I mean, Morgan, when you say defend themselves, does that mean supply them with weapons and not put U.S. military in the fight? I mean, we're there in the region. We have forces fielded in the Indo-Pacific.
Well, look,
Should we be running more U.S. military operations like freedom of navigation operations in the region? And
at the same time, though,
might
China's
that get us in a fight with the Chinese?
They're going to put out these very dramatic press statements against the United States. Guess what?
Yeah.
It hasn't stopped us. and it shouldn't. We should continue to maintain a robust presence, whether it's particularly through in the maritime space, and continuing to back our partners and ensuring that they know we have their backs.
Les, what do you think?
Jamil, I think this is actually a case where the U.S. needs to be visibly supporting its friends and allies in the region as a way to reduce tensions. If the U.S. isn't visibly present with the Vietnamese and the Philippines in this dispute, then it's going to invite more aggression from China. If the U.S. actually demonstrates that we're willing to do these freedom of navigation exercises and that we stand with the Filipinos and the Vietnamese, we're going to reduce the chances that China acts in a stupid fashion.
I mean, that seems counterintuitive, right? I mean, if we do, do what you're saying and increase our operations, it seems like we're likely to come into more and closer conflict with Chinese military forces, fielded forces of the region. In fact, just a few months back, I think we talked about it on this podcast. We had a Chinese military vessel cut in front of an American military vessel. Very close call. We've seen them engage in significant overflights over Taiwan. They've been buzzing our planes in the region as well, sort of coming real close, in close proximity. I mean, this is like the Cold War back in the day, right? I mean, remember that scene in Top Gun where Tom Cruise is, engaging in foreign relations with that MiG fighter? I mean, do we worry that this could turn into a shooting match at some point where, people overestimate what's happening?
Well, we should probably stop thinking of the world through the Top Gun movie. But
not the first time that's
great
been
movie.
brought up on
Great
the
movie.
The thing to be reminded of here is conflict is happening. There's been violence between Chinese and Vietnamese forces. The Philippines are actively involved in this stuff. Our presence there is going to reduce the willingness of China to get involved. It's already happening. In other words, we need to take steps now, and we're largely taking them to prevent these hostilities from getting worse.
You see this in other parts of the world with regimes that are hostile to U.S. partners and U.S. interests. You see this with Iran and Israel, and I think the same is true here.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, nobody can say that we're practicing deterrence effectively yet today. So with that, that's a wrap. Thanks so much to Tatum Clifton, Claude Jennings, and the NSI staff for the help in producing today's episode. Join us again on Friday, September 29th, for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. Fault Lines is now on YouTube, so check out our channel for a video of today's episode. And if you like what you heard, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.